tractor, originally new to a dairy farm near Melton Mowbray, mounted with a four-furrow reversible plough that it's been, and there we have a demonstration of the reverse, which it's been using now for about 20 years, but prior to that had been used for precision chop forest harvesting on that dairy farm by the present owner's brother-in-law. Now, one of our Massey Fergusons with cab, and we do forget these days, and I'm sure we'll have some more modern tractors in a while, but we do forget just how revolutionary the idea of weather protection for the driver was. That Ford 5000 fitted with a good weatherproof cab, as is the Massey Ferguson. But it wasn't an awful lot before that the best chance of any sort of weather protection that a tractor driver would have would be an old tater sack over the shoulders just to keep the wet off. That's Massey 165 now, dating from about 1966.
Hard to believe they're still coming.
Providing both safe
barely hear myself think.
Weather protection. So in the event of a rollover, it does protect you from that. And you'll notice that a number of our tractors fitted with mounts for roll bars, as some of them have been involved in what you might call earning work, either on playing fields or the like, up to relatively recently. And now Malcolm Palmer with the a conversion of the Fortin E1A Super Major to 180 horsepower of Perkins V8 diesel engine out of an old Dodge K-Series fire tender. Jobbed up for tractor pulling amongst other things, and you see that after dark, certainly the flame shooting out the exhaust stacks will give you an idea of the sort of power available. Now we do have all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds involved with tractors, but now we have a gentleman who's not only been involved in muck shifting all his life, but his family have as well, and indeed his son's first experience was in a carry cot on the mudguard of the tractor with that Caterpillar D2, one of the smallest tractors in the Caterpillar range, and rather like a Hoover, of course. Everybody refers to all vacuum cleaners as Hoovers. Then we tend now to refer to all crawler tractors as Caterpillars, although it is in fact one of those trade names that's become a generic. We shouldn't, of course, forget the Nuffield company, who produced the Universal amongst other tractors, part of the Morris Group, and this Universal 4 very much in its working clothes as it passes the commentary point. Great competitor to the Fortin E1A Major Series that Andrew Stezaker's taking in the other direction. And then in between, or just passing behind the Nuffield, Peter with his Dexter, the lighter weight Fortin tractor. And when you look at that, that's the Super Dexter. You can see a very close family resemblance with Harry Ferguson's production. Now, four-wheel drive tractors are plenty, various different steering arrangements. Mercedes-Benz, some of them have a four-wheel steer, some of them have articulated steer. This particular tractor's been working all weekend. I think it's Kelmarsh Young Farmers, if I'm not much mistaken. Yes, got that bit right. Giving rides around the site, all in aid of a donation, with the trailers very kindly loaned by Malton College. An example. Now, some of these tractors, I'm not sure about the Mercedes, and I'm not sure I ought to tempt him to show off since he's got a trailer on the back, but some of these are actually capable of using the steering so that you can slew the whole tractor crabwise as well as turn corners. So I've certainly come across, I'm trying to think which one it is, one of the tractors, it might have been one of the Massey Fergusons actually, where with the big four-wheel drive tractor you could actually lock the rear axle, just steer on the front, have it steering in opposite directions, front and rear, for a really tight turning circle, or as I say, crab it sideways. But maybe that's not the sort of thing we ought to be demonstrating with a trailer on the back loaded with people. 66, so we're going back 44 years now. And again, the driver of this tractor would expect him to spend most of his working day out in the open air. When you compare that with the air conditioning fitted to the Mercedes-Benz and the local positioning systems, and you haven't got aircon in there. Tut, tut, tut. You went for the base model then. But certainly some of the modern tractors do have aircon fitted. That one, obviously they... Oh, I see, you wind the windows up and down, fair enough. Obviously they wanted to make people think there was aircon with the vents in the roof, but you do find the aircon fitted to a number of the modern tractors. But we now go back to a rather older tractor, dating in fact from 1923, and this Fortune Model F, complete with hay sweep, or straw sweep, depending on what you're picking up. But basically, when you've been harvesting using a reaper binder, and I suspect we'll have one of those coming along later, when you drop your straw off, sometimes if you're, even before the reaper binder was invented, when you were just using an ordinary reaper, you would need to get the corn ready for putting in stooks, and that sweep was one way of picking it all up. Well before the days of the combine harvester, of course. You would then possibly, even when you had your combine, you've dropped your straw off and you need to bale it up, so you would then need something like this square baler behind the Massey 35X, the slightly more powerful version of the 35 belonging to Ian Brown from the Hollowell Group, and the McCormick International square baler. This one using baler string, baler twine, incredibly useful stuff around the farm. Earlier balers using wire, but of course that was a bit disastrous if it got into the bedding, if you're using straw for stock bedding, because a wire in the stomach tends to lead to a dead animal fairly swiftly. Another of our E27N majors, this one with a Bamford Woofler, which belongs to Roger Watson. This was but one way of turning over the hay when you're harvested your hay crop. You'll cut your hay crop, obviously you then need to dry it, so you need to be able to turn it over. The woofler was one way of doing it. There are others, and we have a couple of others coming in, but before that we have our Fortune Major, another of our E1As. Incidentally, this particular model of tractor was always felt to have the edge over the Nuffield competitor when it came to ploughing, because of a slightly better nose weight. A very unusual little Ica from the working area, the Stan Watson working area. This one dates from 1965, I think, this little light tractor. And another version of the hay rake, this time for turning using power from the land wheels, because this started life as a horse-drawn implement. You can see where the tubular steel shafts have been cut short and bent in, attached to an eye, because much of the equipment was converted from horse-drawn to tractor-drawn, and they lead on with a land utility model of the Fordson Standard Model N, the wartime model with the narrow wings to save steel, and the steel wheel or cast iron front and steel rear wheels in order to save on rubber. You might think, well, why do you save steel on the one hand and then use it in the wheels? But of course, the one thing we do have to import into this country we use is rubber, well before the days of synthetic rubbers. And that also with a little tipping tumbrel cart, which again started life as a horse-drawn and has subsequently been converted to tractor use with the elevator.